Good evening. I'm Michael Kirsty. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of Chamber Music. On behalf of Friends of Chamber Music, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Performance in Context conversation with Toyin Spellman-Diaz, oboist of Imani Winds. The Imani Winds will be performing on Sunday at 3 p.m. at the Mastery Center for the Arts at the College of St. Rose. They will be playing a program featuring works by Valerie Coleman, Lalo Schifrin, Igor Stravinsky, and more in their program, The French Connection. Tickets are $35 and available at the door and on our website. Toyin, thank you so much for joining us this evening. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited to be back in Troy. It's gonna be so fun.
Yes, this is a return of the Imani Winds to our series, and we are so excited to start our 2024-2025 season with this concert. So thank you again for joining us. So I was hoping for all new listeners here this evening, if you could tell us a bit about your name, Imani Winds. What does it refer to, and how did you come up with that name?
Well, Imani Winds, by the way, has been around since 1997. I'm an original member. I know I look young, but the group, the name came from the founder of the group, our flutist, whose name is Valerie Coleman, whose music we're playing on the concert soon. And she came up with the name actually before met. She had the people all ready for the ensemble. Imani means faith in Swahili. And so Imani Winds, applying to the wind quintet, it's not rocket science. It made, I guess it all fell together in her head, and that gave her the faith and the courage to call us up and ask us to be a part of this wind quintet that she was dreaming of. A wind quintet made up of musicians of color who were going to come together, and she had this whole vision when she started it that we were going to play a lot of music by musicians of color. We would play her arrangements and compositions, and all based on faith. And everything she thought of has actually come true. So she's an amazing visionary, and now she's a rock star, composer, just playing and performing and composing for some of the finest orchestras in the world now. So it's she's really cool, and I can't believe that we were so lucky to catch her, catch her inspiration, and keep it going even after she's gone and gone on to make it our own inspiration, our own new thing as it goes along.
That is amazing. When she gave you the call, was this something that you had thought about in the past, or like playing in a wind quintet, or was this more novel for you?
Well, I mean, you went to a conservatory. You know that when you're in a conservatory and you play an instrument like the cello or the oboe, you have to play chamber music. But I played in a wind quintet when I was in high school. I played in a couple of wind quintets when I was in college, in undergrad and grad school, and it was really important to me. Actually, my last year at Oberlin Conservatory of Music, I played in 5 different chamber music groups my last semester. So chamber music was always important to me, but I knew for sure, none of this is true, but I knew for sure then that I was going to be an orchestral oboist. Mainly because, like, what else can an oboist do, really? I mean, there's not that many options if you want to be an oboist. There's really orchestra or teaching, or at least that's what I thought when I was in grad school when Valerie gave me the call. So I was happy, so happy to get together and play chamber music. But then I went back and practiced Le Tombeau de Couperin and all the other orchestral excerpts that we oboists had to practice, because I was sure I was going to have to win a job. But actually, Imani Winds is our full-time job now, and it has been since, I'd say, 2002 or 3. So that, 20 years of nonstop chamber music making has been my delight and my honor for almost 20 years now.
Oh my, that is amazing. And when you first had that first rehearsal with everybody, was it instant synergy? Did you know right away, like this is something that I
Yeah.
can be a part of? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, did I know it was going to last for 28 years? No. But I knew we did have something special. Again, were you taking auditions when you were coming out of school? Were you trying to be an orchestral player when you came out of school?
I took a few auditions, yes, as well as teaching, freelancing.
Right, right, right. So you know that when you're trying to get a job, you're kind of focused on it. So my whole focus when Imani Wins started was very much trying to win a job. I was practicing this stuff, making reeds, trying to sound like an orchestral oboist. It's a little different sound for a chamber musician. And actually, Imani Wins has kind of built our own sound over time. I'm sure we'll get into that in a while, but we have a breadth of colors that we've cultivated that will actually be on display in the concert we do in Troy. But I was excited, and it was great to meet these wonderful performers, musicians, people of color who were playing these instruments at such a high level. I knew it was a special moment. But did I know it was going to be my job forever? No, I did not. I did not.
Pleasantly surprised.
That's right.
Um, when I watch you all perform, I notice that you're all really connected to each other and you are anticipating each other's entrances and really enjoying each other's playing. And as an audience member, it's fantastic to watch. Is this something that you all practice in rehearsals or think about when you are working on a new piece?
Absolutely, we practiced it back in the day. We had exercises we worked on for communication. For a while, I was music ed at Oberlin, as well as performance, and so there through that, I got involved with different teaching exercises through exploring how to be good to my students. Um, I was exploring, acting exercises, things to just engage the students, and so I brought those to the ensemble early on. But also, just there was trust that we've built up over the years. For sure, you can look somebody in the eye, but not trust them or not pass along energy. You can do all the exercises in the world, but you have to have that Imani, that faith in each other, that you can count on them to know what you need in that moment, or also for them to take the energy that you want to give to the other person. So it's been really amazing, amazing. It's We're not always super excited on the stage. As the season wears on, one gets tired, one misses one's family, but when we step on the stage, it's something entirely different. You just give to each other and receive from each other this energy, and lay it all on the floor, and lay it at the feet of the audience, and hope that you all appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, we're so looking forward for our audience to experience this magic on Sunday. And all of the members, the current members of Amani Winds have extensive experience playing as soloists and orchestral musicians. When you play in a chamber setting, do you listen differently or how are you finding a balance?
Yeah, I when you're an orchestra, you wait for your moment to shine. I think you're listening to the incredible musicians around you do their awesome work, and you're appreciative of that. But you can't be giving you too much energy. That would take away from the other people. There's just too many people on stage for that to work out like the same way. Um, of course, I always try to give my all in the performance, and I think I might look. Yeah, I don't know about you, but when I'm playing, I might look too much at the conductor. Uh, I think they don't want people to look as much. That's why in orchestra stands are higher, because I think people aren't necessarily looking all that high. When you're playing chamber music, the stand is way down, so you can look at the other folks. Um, But yeah, I am listening. I'm always listening hard. I love being in an orchestra and being caught up in the swept in the moment of all the people playing together, just a whole slew of people on the stage working. When it's just the five of us, or in other chamber music ensembles, you're you're waiting. You're able to give more energy. And then when you're in soloist, of course, it's all you. It's all you, or you and somebody else, one or two other people. So that's a whole nother. That's really fun and exciting. I really enjoy that too.
Oh, wow. And, you know, as a string player and especially in string quartets, we a lot of focus sometimes during rehearsal is having a very unified and blended sound. But being in an ensemble where every instrument is very different by nature, is this something that you guys consider during your rehearsals?
100%. Absolutely. Every instrument has its tendencies, and every brand of instrument is different. And then there's the reeds. Oh, the reeds. What a pain. So yeah, I mean, we for sure do. I think we try to celebrate our differences. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the ensemble, is celebrating the differences, be it in repertoire, personalities, instruments, finding a way to come together, to create different sounds, different textures. Yeah, that's something that the wind quintet does very if it's thought out. It can be a little disjointed if it's not thought out well, but we've got that on lock for sure.
Yes, you guys certainly do. So recently, this past year, the Imani Winds won a Grammy for the 2024 awards for the Best Classical Compendium for their album Passion from Bach to Coltrane. This album is an amazing collaboration of classical music, jazz, and your father's passion for poetry and his appreciation for music. And I was hoping you could share a little bit more about what started this album and how it came to be.
Well, it was all Jeff, really, the composer of the piece and former French horn player of Imani Winds. Dad, this album, listeners, uh, features the poetry of my father, A.B. Spellman, who is a celebrated, accomplished poet. He's 80, he turned 89 in August. So, he's been out there on these streets for a long time. But he gave Jeff a book of his poetry that featured a poem about the idea of what would happen if Bach and J.S. Bach and John Coltrane, the famed jazz saxophonist, met in heaven. What would they play together? What would they do together? For sure, they would want to do something. And what would it sound like? And so Jeff took that idea and made it into a concert-length piece featuring the poetry of my father. And Jeff and Dad, A.B. Spellman, have worked together actually quite a couple of times after that. And I think they're just talking about something. They're doing a new project together right now. And Jeff is like, well, I think this is a 10-year project, so we can work on it for the next 10 years. And Dad's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. But it was, so Jeff kind of set this mood in the rehearsals. I was just a stander passerby, stander by her, passenger. I was standing. I was just there. I was just able to be there and take it all in. Jeff set this mood for the rehearsals. It was just all love with the Harlem Quartet, Alex Brown, Edward Perez. No, it was Alex Brown and his brother Zach. He was playing bass. Alex Brown was playing piano. And then Neil Smith, a colleague of ours, who went to Oberlin with Monica and I, Monica Ellis, the bassoonist. So yeah, it was just it was a love fest from the first rehearsal to the last chord of the recording session. And they'll be for sale at the performance for sure, as well as a DVD, so you all can experience it outright.
Yes, we're so looking forward to that. And so this album features not only the Imani Winds, but also a string quartet, a jazz trio, and your father, the poet. the word alchemy kind of comes to mind. You're all reacting to each other to create something unique. What was the rehearsal process like, as opposed to rehearsing with just the Imani winds in your standard kind of configuration?
Right. Well, because the music itself is an amalgam of Bach music, specifically, but not exclusively, the Bach's Goldberg variations, and again, not specifically completely, but "A Love Supreme" by John Coltrane. Um, there was already some stuff, different stuff coming together. That's already alchemy. He had to have the Sorcerer's Stone, thanks to like Harry Potter. He had to have that ready to go. And then the Harlem Quartet, they're just fantastic musicians, and we've never played it with another quartet. It's always been them because not every quartet has a fantastic improviser in the form of Ilmar Gavilan, one of their violinists. So we worked with them, and like I said, he wanted it to be a symbiotic kind of healthy blend of the music and the people, and so he built that kind of rapport with us right away. And I think we started doing this performance in 2012. That's when he wrote the music, and we took it on tour starting in 2012 up until now. We're playing it at the Kennedy Center in November. So and every time, everybody's so excited to get together and play this incredible music. I don't think we've played it since we've had the Grammys. So I think the Kennedy Center is going to be the first time since then that we've played it. And that's where I'm from. That's where Dad lives. So Dad has lived in DC since I grew up there since the 70s. So he's got his whole people. It's going to be amazing. Kennedy Center is a real home for me musically. I did so many education programs there when I was in high school. So I'm very, very excited for that performance.
Oh man, that is going to be fantastic. Wow. And I was reading your notes that you wrote for the album, and one of them really stuck out to me. This album could be interpreted through a religious lens, with Bach and Coltrane both being very religious people. But in your notes in the album, you mention every time we perform this music has been such a healing experience, almost transcendental. I believe this is partially because of the sacredness of the piece, but not necessarily because of its religious material. When music is made with true collaboration, fearlessness, and love, it can elevate those who experience it to a higher realm. I love this quote, and I think it brought up a good question that I think our audience would like to hear more about. Like, what technical aspects do you consider on your instrument when expressing certain aesthetic qualities, like for performance?
Like when I'm playing sad music, how do I feel sad, or that
Hey,
kind of thing?
sadness, right, versus
Yeah.
something like
Hmm. Well, it depends. Sometimes when you're playing chamber music, sometimes you're in a supportive role and sometimes you're in the leading role. So when someone else is the lead voice and you're supporting, there's a certain kind of thing. We say this in master classes sometimes. When you're playing a supportive role, it's kind of like somebody is. This is silly, but you know me now, so you know that's how I go. It's like you're in a fight, or that person is in a fight, and you're standing behind them, and they're like, they're like, they say whatever they're going to say, and you're like, yeah, yeah, that's right, that's it. You're backing them up. You're their backup, and then if it's quiet or sad, you're like, yeah, yeah, what he said, what she said,
support.
versus as when you're leading. so so there's the leader versus the supportive role. A lot of times young people play the supportive role and kind of check out, but I think that's an amazing moment to check in, and not just check in, but maybe bring even more than when you're in the supportive role, because you have to be so careful to uplift whoever's in control. Anyway, so different aesthetics. Back to the aesthetics thing. Let's say I was in charge of the moment. For sure, sometimes I put myself in that kind of mood. Um, I really try to bring the happiness. I bring the sadness. All of the members of the quintet are very expressive players, so they're all, and all the past players too. You bring that emotion to the moment, but you're also thinking very carefully about what your instrument, um, how your instrument can do that. Like you can try too hard sometimes, and sometimes you hear that in an instrumentalist too. You're trying so hard to express something that you forget that you're expressing the needs of the composer, really. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I think commitment is important, support is important, flexibility in that time or in that space too. Knowledge of instrument is very important.
I've been really listening to this album so much this week, and it is so, so
Oh, thank you.
great.
We're not playing that. We're playing other cool music. We will be playing cool music, Troy. Promise.
And before we talk about that program, I did want to touch a bit more on so education. I know that you said Imani Wins is a full time for all of you right now, but all members of the ensemble teach at various universities and institutions. And when I went to your website, I noticed the Imani Wins Chamber Music Festival. Uh,
Yes.
Now, was education always a part of your ensemble's mission, like from the beginning?
From
And
the very beginning. Our first gig was at the YMCA at Lincoln Center, playing for kindergartners. That was
oh,
our very first gig, and our first couple of years, most of our performances were for children. So for sure, and then it's kind of cool. We played for very, very young kids, and at a certain point, the people we were working with middle schoolers, high schoolers, college age. They were raising in age, so we could say, how many of you are 17? Me, me. Well, we started 17 years ago when you were born, but now, I mean, it's that's all out the window. 28 years. We've been around for a long time. So yeah, it's very, very important since the very beginning. Really, uh, we want to show a couple of things. We want to show that people of color can play these instruments just as well as anybody else. That was part of the original thinking. We wanted to show that there's a breadth of music that belongs in classical music, not just the old Bach, which is, by the way, my favorite composer. So I have no problems with Bach. By far my favorite composer. But there's new music being created all the time, including the music of Valerie Coleman and Jeff Scott, the former French horn player and flutist of the ensemble. And then we commission a lot of works. And I think really just playing any concert where you're doing something that people might not be able to experience is a moment of education. And I don't mean, you will like this. You will like this. We are playing it and you will listen. But the idea of, again, like the sharing of experience, we bring the beauty of this brand new music that the composers are still alive. The concert we're doing, oh, for you guys, there are some dead folks on that concert, I will admit. But there are some alive ones too. So just the idea of this music that is newly written, freshly written, that's something that we educate our audiences on all the time.
and so you touched on a few things that I was hoping to get to. How in the same vein of education, how do you foster how do we all foster young artists in our communities today, even if you weren't a member of Imani Wins?
Right. I think involvement is very important. Important. It's a civic involvement in your young folks. Let's see. I'm not familiar with the arts organizations in Troy other than you guys. But I'm sure there's a youth orchestra somewhere that if you could go to their concerts, I think that would be incredible. I think that's the way to do it. Um, I think there are arts organizations all over the country who need support, including Imani Wins, including Friends of Chamber Music Troy in Troy. So I think it's very important to work with these organizations who work with young folks and support them monetarily and with your time and your heart. We say that all the time, like money, time, heart. That's the investments we all have, everybody has. So please support Friends of Chamber Music, please.
Hey, and we always support Imani Wins. We are such big fans of you guys. Um, so for our concert on Sunday, you will be bringing an amazing program entitled The French Connection. This will feature composer Lina Maithan Blanchet, Jean Francais, Lalo Schifrin, Valerie Coleman, and
Oh
Igor
yes.
Stravinsky. We are so excited about this program, and I was curious, how did this come together? Did you settle on the theme first, or were you just putting pieces together and the theme kind of emerged?
Kind of a little of both. We were fortunate enough to commission Igor Stravinsky's Rite of Spring reduction for just wind quintet. That's been around in our repertoire since around the same time as the Passion, since 2012, 2013. So we've had that. And there's Valerie wrote this piece called Sweet Portraits of Josephine, like a suite of pieces. And Josephine Baker was, and she did that in 2006 for her 100th birthday. Um, so Josephine Baker was huge in Paris. So those pieces we already had. But then we wanted to bring more of a breadth of what French means. Just like American doesn't mean just one type of person. Being of the French diaspora means several different things. So then we were looking around for other music. We found this piece by a Haitian composer, which starts the concert. Nouvelle Orleans was written by Lalo Schifrin in 1987, as was the Francais quintet that we're playing. That piece was written in 1987 as well. So fairly new, fairly new. And towards the ends of Francais' life, he was very much a mid-century composer, kind of like your background there in your house, mid-century. Uh, so yeah, we wanted to get a breadth of what being French meant.
Oh, wow. And the Sweet Portraits of Josephine Baker, written by Valerie Coleman. This was written for celebration of her 100th year birthday, correct? And
Yes.
what was Valerie's inspiration for going about this and celebrating her? I mean, besides Josephine being an amazing performer, advocate, and trailblazer, what started this project?
Well, let's see. In 2006, when we did it, we were about to turn 10, the ensemble, and we had been playing Jeff and Valerie's music a lot and searching for new repertoire. We wanted to start commissioning new works, and so actually, for the Josephine Baker project that we came to get, we were formulating. No, no, no. We commissioned this guy. His name is Fred Ho. He died of cancer, unfortunately, very early. But he wrote us a piece called Josephine Baker and Her Angels from the Rainbow. Josephine Baker adopted a dozen children from around the world. This was in the 40s or so. So that was right before the whole theme park Disneyland era. And back then, people would go to exhibitions. The Great Exhibition of 19 blah blah blah. So she would put her children on display and show that children could live together. That was not that weird back then. It was very much of its time. So anyway, that piece was the inspiration to do a whole concert. We admired Josephine Baker and how she had this life as kind of an exotic She danced almost completely naked except for a banana skirt and some underwear. So she was that, and then she reinvented herself as a cabaret singer. She also was very intelligent and um, did was a part of the resistance, French resistance in World War II. And she just constantly was reinventing herself in such an intelligent, amazing way. And we wanted to honor her and be like her, embody her in a concert. So we had this whole concert. We had a dancer, we had a singer. We showed her movies, paid respect to her because she deserves it, and she does deserve that honor. So this was one part of it. This is one part of it that Valerie put together.
I'm so excited to hear this suite in person. Um, and in addition to Valerie Coleman, Imani Wins, you regularly commission and perform new works through your Legacy Commissioning Project. When did that begin?
Right then, it
Right then.
began with that piece by Fred Ho. That was our first piece, and then as that was successful, we said, you know what, we're going to continue to commission works by composers of color. So we continued on. For our 10-year anniversary, which would have been 2007, we commissioned 10 works by composers of color. And then we kept the party going. We started working with Wayne Shorter. Wayne Shorter, amazing jazz saxophonist who just died a year or 2 years ago. He wrote us a piece. We went on tour with him. We just commissioned more and more works. For our 20th anniversary, we had a focus on women composers of color that we were doing. And then as time went on and there was all this divisiveness amongst people, we realized that we had to do more than just commission people who looked a certain way. We had to tell stories with our music. And so a lot of the things we've been commissioning in the 8 years since then have had some sort of story behind it. Like this piece we commissioned by Andy Akiho, which is on our latest album, called Belonging. It's we'll hope it's up for another Grammy. Well, I hope so. My God. I mean, every time this was our third Grammy nomination, this one that just won. And every time I'm shocked that people won't like it enough that we got a Grammy nom. Anyway, so this piece was inspired by sounds of protest we heard at a detention center in Brooklyn. And so that piece, we've been trying to, speaking of education or reaching people, we're trying to perform it as often as possible at prisons or detention centers or homeless shelters around the country. So we're just trying to keep reaching new people, keep bringing new sounds to the ensemble. And that's how we're continuing. We have 3 new members now. Just 2 of us are the original members of the ensemble. And those 2 members are going to be writing for us. So there's new sounds from within the ensemble. There are new in-house composers from the new generation of Imani Wins members. And I'm so excited to see where we go next.
We're excited to hear where you go next. Um, just switching gears a little bit, one question that we really like to ask our seasoned artists, that is great to hear. How do you become a classical musician, and what might have been your earliest musical memory?
Well, I was lucky in that my father worked for the National Endowment for the Arts when I was coming up, starting when I was 3 or 4, and he worked there for 30 years, and so he got free tickets to everything. So I saw great jazz performance, and he was also is a jazz historian. He no longer works at the NEA, but he's a historian, and he's again a poet. My mom is also tremendously involved with the arts. She was a presenter herself back in the day, and she was a large scale planner party planner, like tens and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people planner. And yeah, she's amazing. So I was exposed to the arts really early. And there was a great arts organization in DC. Everybody's journey is different, but there was a great youth orchestra in DC that I took part in that was actually 60%, 55, 60, maybe 65% African American, which is very, very rare at that time. It wasn't even meant to be for African Americans. It was just a DC public school system thing. So I never felt weird playing the flute at the time. And then there were 10 million flutists, so I switched over to oboe and got more solos and fell in love with music in general. And oboe just happened to be what was in my hand that I was working on. And I knew in order to play this for the rest of my life, I had to stick with one instrument. You can't, I wasn't born to be a doubler. So, and oboe's hard. It's really hard. So I stuck with it, and then through college and studied in conservatory at Oberlin Conservatory, then Manhattan School of Music. And then I did a post-grad at Manhattan School of Music. And then I went and played in an orchestra in Chicago, the Chicago Civic Orchestra, for a year, and got to sub with the Chicago Symphony, got to sub with the New York Phil. Wonderful orchestras. But in the process, I realized that in an orchestra, you are not as in control of what you're doing in your life. You don't get to choose your music necessarily. You don't get to choose who you're sitting next to. You certainly don't get to choose who's sitting in your audience. So those things. At the moment, it didn't coalesce like that in right away while I was in civic orchestra, but it eventually came to me that I didn't want to be an orchestral musician. I wanted to be a chamber musician, and here I am.
And so about the oboe, could you tell us a little bit about your particular instrument? Do you travel with it? Do you have a collection? Are you
Right? Yeah. Some people do have collections of oboes. I've had the same oboe. This is not usually the case because oboes wear out. The oboes, it's different physics of oboe and kind of gross. When you're playing a wind instrument, it's colder on the outside and warmer on the inside, so there's condensation, right? And so it runs down the length of your wind instrument. Let's say you're playing flute, it runs down the length of your flute, or if you're playing oboe, clarinet, it runs down the length of those instruments. And after a while, that condensation creates a kind of divot in the instrument, so it eventually kind of wears out. But so usually oboists change after a few years. I have been playing the same oboe for a good 20 years now, mainly because I bought a new one, it got stolen, and I haven't bought another one since. Let's see, what was your question exactly? Playing the oboe. And then there's oboe reeds. So professional double reed players make their own oboe. They make their own double reeds. So I have a whole host of reed making materials that I travel with. I have knives, sharpening stones, little things, little gadgets and gizmos. I got what's it galore.
How long does it take you to make maybe one great reed?
Uh, Well, I usually make them in packs. Like I'll make 2, 3, 4 at a time. And so usually out of those 4, one might be good, maybe 2, but most likely 1. So each reed I make in stages. So let's say I wish I could show you the stuff. Maybe if we have time, I'll show you. But I start it one day, I'd go to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. So altogether, about an hour a read, an hour and a half. Yeah, but I also start later in the stage. Reeds come from bamboo, like a stick of bamboo. And I don't, you can get a literal tube of cane and then split that cane, gouge out the inside, fold it over, tie it onto the tube, it's called, and then scrape it. So I start with it already scraped out. I start like 2 or 3 steps in. So I don't, if I were starting at the very beginning of it, it would probably take me about another hour per read. And I'm, like I said, I'm 4 to get one. So that's 4 hours of read making for one read. So if I were to do that other step, it would be another uh, 4 hours. So that's why I don't do that extra step. I'm also the president of the Imani Wins Foundation, and I'm the development person for the Imani Wins Foundation. I'm the project manager for Imani Wins. So all of that is a lot of work outside of just playing the instrument, you know?
Right, right, right. I do want to leave just a few time if anybody would like to type a question to ask Toyin directly now. This would be a great time to throw that in the chat.
Come
And
on, bring it on.
let's see, and maybe they'll come in. In the meantime, as people are preparing their questions, I was hoping that, to hear a little bit more about some mentors that maybe you've had in your life, mentors for your group, but also maybe for you personally that you maybe have contributed along the way.
Yeah, it's absolutely so important. So important. And we try to pay that forward as much as possible. The mentor teacher relationship is so important. I had some amazing oboe teachers, Joe Robinson of the New York Phil, Dick White, who was the English hornist of the National Symphony, James Caldwell, my teacher at Oberlin. These folks were so important to me. Ada Sanders, I had a black woman oboe teacher. She was my teacher when I was 14 or so, 13, 14. So those are very important. And then, yes, the group has had some amazing mentors too. People who really started our career for us or really helped us out. A lot of clarinet players, really. David Krakauer, David Schifrin. Those guys were great. They were all teachers from Manhattan School of Music. No, David Schifrin was not our teacher, but he was the first one to take us on at Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center. He brought us on in their young person division, and so he was so important. Frank Morelli, who was Monica Arbasunist's teacher, he coached us for free. For free? I don't remember if we paid him or not, but these people coached us early on. We have a great board who continue to be mentors to us as we're growing as an entrepreneurial business, as an institution, with the festival, with our commissions, with this media company we've started that is producing albums, podcasts, and videos for musicians of color. Like all these things, I don't know how we dream of them, but they couldn't happen without lots of mentorship and help. So
We do have one question that came in right now. How much time is spent researching the historical/contemporary context of your performance pieces versus the actual musical rehearsal?
right, that's a great question, Brett. I appreciate that. Um, so we do. There's most of the music that we're playing nowadays is brand new, or we're commissioning it. So a lot of times and now that we're doing these story based ideas, things that relate to the times we're living in, a lot of time is spent just absorbing what's going on in the world around us, um, reading about historical figures who mean something to us. And then we approach a composer and ask them if they find something meaningful in that idea too. Um, this woman, Rena Esmail, she incredible composer, thinker. When Gustav Holst's The Planets, his most famous work. When that piece was turning 100, we asked Rena if she could write a companion piece to that. because we wanted to do an arrangement of it and then get perspectives on the cosmos from different places. And she wrote us a piece called "The Light is the Same." And her piece was based on a poem by Rumi, the great Sufi poet and thinker, mystic. And that poem, I'm going to butcher it, but it's basically says, there are many stars in the sky, and there are many perspectives of people who see. I'm totally messing up the poem. It's completely wrong, but the idea is the same. But the light is the same. Many people look at the sky, but the light is the same from these stars. So the idea of it took a while to come up with, and then the music was really freaking hard. So it took a long time to learn that on our own, and then bring that to rehearsal. So yeah.
And we have another question here. Would you be able to talk about how the world of chamber music performance has shifted and changed since you began this project in 1997? And if possible, how you wish to see it grow in the future?
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that, Anonymous. I appreciate that. Well, so in 1997, a bunch of chamber music groups started at once. And for some reason, a lot of them had a connection to Oberlin, believe it or not. Our ensemble, three of us went to Oberlin. And then Jeff, our former horn player, taught at Oberlin up until this year. So there was a kind of, you know what, here's the thing to think about, anonymous person. Do you remember, I'm not looking at you, but I bet you remember this album brand that you find in Starbucks called Putumayo. It was, they'd have like different world musics from, and they had a really cute like album covers, and they'd have like Brazilian stuff. They'd have, yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you remember. Yeah. And so the term world music was in the air. So different groups started bringing in these different sounds. Kronos was huge in 97. And they were doing a bunch of projects that they called Music from Africa, Music from Asia. And so that was huge back then. And a bunch of chamber music groups were starting. And you know what else was happening in 97 was that was when orchestras really started struggling for money. And just like in the jazz world, when big bands became too expensive to book, people started booking more chamber music groups. I remember when we were first going around, there'd be, we'd go to a presenter that used to bring the London Philharmonic out, but the classical music funding was shrinking. The National Endowment for the Arts, where my dad worked, the budget was shrunk by so much while he was there. He quit in the George H.W. Bush years because he just couldn't take it no mo. He just couldn't take the having to prove that the arts were worthy of people's time, money, and attention and heart. So anyway, so that was then. Now there's been kind of a resurgence, especially after the reckoning that the country has gone through with George Floyd's murder and all that, the terrible atrocities that have been taken upon people of color, not just Black folks, but all over the country. So actually, there was a massive influx in the past 3-4 years of money to musicians of color or institutions in the art world of color that has now started to dry up, quite frankly. So there was a moment where there was you'll see, I think Seth Parker Woods is playing with the New York Phil later in I know you know him as a cellist. He's playing with the New York Phil. There's these artists who have started creating this work, and how Imani Wins is looking at it now that we're 28 years old. We've got some experience in it. Is we've seen this ebb and flow of monies coming and going for different types of things. Women composers were huge 6-7 years ago. but that attention 15 years ago was not there for women composers. So we are trying to, as an established ensemble, gather people and help people because we have kind of gotten over that hump. People like wonderful folks in Troy, you guys book us now. So we're, like I said, we started this media company where we're helping other people of color produce their own albums. We have our Chamber Music Festival where we talk about how to build equitable uh, arts organizations. We have talks about these things in addition to how to play Samuel Barber's summer music. So we're like I said before, we're trying to work, build a community now.
We have lots of questions coming in now. Uh, Imani Winds performs in spaces other than conventional concert venues, such as prisons and homeless shelters. How can emerging musicians and artists get involved with sharing their work in these spaces?
Person, maybe you can answer this. Um, what's your instrument? And because I have a good person I have a good contact for you.
Okay. Cello.
Cello. Um, okay, so there's a great organization that's working in prisons, actually called Music Cambia. I'm going to put it in the chat. Um,
Nathan
yeah,
Tam.
yeah. So they Music Cambia works at Sing Sing, which is not far from you all, I guess. Sing Sing prison, and Imani Wins actually has been working with them and partnering with them recently. Uh, so it's really hard to get into these spaces. I will say that it's really, really hard because there's also they don't want people to come in, frankly, or they might want some people might want them to come in, but security reasons, red tape, uh, regulations abound. So it's really great to partner with other organizations who've done that work before, or with a college. I know some colleges in the Midwest that are trying to get that done. They bring in artists, musicians, different people together. So I would definitely say try to work with an institution. That's the best way to do it.
Here's another question. Classical music versus contemporary. If you personally had to choose only one, which would it be and why?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by contemporary because classical music is contemporary. There's lots of contemporary classical music. That's what Imani Wins does for a living. So really, so I feel like I'm living the dream, doing both. Now, my dear Bach, I play that mostly for myself, or when I'm playing solo stuff, I try to work in some Bach where I can. But I think there's place for, as a musician, you as a professional musician, we play whatever people hire us to do, frankly. So I'm lucky in that I get to play with this ensemble, and we choose what we get to play. But yeah, Rite of Spring is now quite old. It's over 100 years old, and we're doing that on our concert. And then we're doing Valerie's piece, which was written in 2006, or Lalo Schifrin's piece. So it's really fun to switch it up.
All right. And we have maybe our final question. Do you have any plans to incorporate more art forms into your performances?
Hi, Miss Nia. Don't know you, but I can't. I hope you're coming to our concert. Yeah, we were lucky enough for our 25th anniversary. Well, it was not luck. We planned this whole thing. So for our 25th anniversary, kind of encapsulates this and is a perfect example. We wanted to celebrate 25 years as an ensemble. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. can't believe it. I remember us like sneaking into Juilliard and rehearsing for, just for the fun of it, for some pizza. So going along with this idea of making our mission statement is making meaningful connections through music. We aspire to make meaningful connections through music. So for our 25th anniversary, we decided to commission some new works, but not just for us. We wanted to partner with young folks and have new works written by excellent composers for young folks, especially of color. So we went to the Harlem School for the Arts and asked them if we could partner with them, and if we could have Paquito de Rivera, an amazing composer and musician, write a piece for us and also for their jazz band. And another composer, an incredible composer, his name is Saad Haddad. He wrote a piece for us and their beginning band as a picture score. So he wrote, and then he wrote a piece for us as well. So, and then at the same time, we wanted the Harlem School for the Arts, amazing organization. They've been around since the Harlem Renaissance time. It was started by members of the Harlem Renaissance. So we asked, they have art there. And so we commissioned a work of art that is hung right now in the Harlem School of the Arts that could stay there and serve as a testament of our belief that those kids are pretty special. And so that work of art is still there. So that is one time we did it. And then we've worked for the Josephine Baker. We worked with this dancer and then a singer. We do that every now and then, but most of the time it's just instrumentalists we work with.
Thank you so much. And one last question that I would like to ask, that we like to ask all of our artists here today. What do you think the role is of artists today in the world? Is this something that you think about for yourself? Like, what is my role in the world? Or what are my goals as an artist citizen?
Yeah, I think you can tell we spend a lot of time thinking about that. Yeah, a lot. What can one, flutist do to make a difference in this world? And I think the answer is to keep thinking about it and keep coming up with ways to connect with your audience and to connect with the music makers in a way that is true to yourself. Um, so we had that prison thing we're doing, prison thing. We're calling it the Belonging Project. But then we have one of our latest projects that hopefully we will get all the money together for to work with. I brought up Kronos Quartet, one of the most famous chamber music groups of all time, especially in the 90s. They did a lot of work as the curators of bringing of different cultures to classical music. And we said to ourselves, why can't we be that? Why can't we be the bringers of different types of cultures into classical music? Why does it have to be, quite frankly, a white-centric host? Why can't it be us? So for now, we're working on. We thought we'd go to the source, and we're working with some contemporary artists from Africa. Somebody asked people who hit us right in the heart right now. There's Richard Bona we're going to be working with. He's an amazing bass player. Lionel Lueke, he plays with Sting all the time. And another great bass player. And hopefully, I'm putting it out there, we're still trying to get her on the phone, but hopefully Angelique Kidjo, who's an incredible singer. These guys are singers, instrumentalists. So we're going to arrange some of their music and play with them on our next album. And we're calling it Shared Inheritance. That's the name of this next project we're doing. So, and while we're doing it, we also want to partner with the communities where we bring this. Angelique and Richard are both from Benin. So if there's Beninians in the area where we're performing, we would like to be able to, invite them personally to the concert, bring them to the presenters as a part of what we're trying to do, and also try to build in the next generation. Like we'll partner with different conservatories or youth orchestras to try to get them involved with this too. So that's the kind of work we're working on: intergenerational, personally meaningful, honest, uh, and open to the possibilities.
Toyin, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for your generous time and being willing to answer our questions. I can't wait to see you guys on Sunday, and I can't wait for the audience to see you as well. Um,
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. I'm looking forward to meet. Please say hello, everybody. Miss Sheila and Chloe and Nia and everybody. Please say hello.
All right. Thank you again. See you soon.
Okay, thank you.